What's happening, gamers? It's Ran. In this one we have Jade, the pregnancy princess. Perfect timing on the vote from the community since we have Belly of the Beast active, so that anyone can go out and farm Jade if you still need to try her for yourself. Starting straight in with Jade's passive, well, passives, because technically she actually has two. The first is she has access to 2 auras, which obviously is very strong as it gives you access to higher mod capacity with plus 28 instead of the usual plus 14 from a single slot. She also has a passive for enemies impacted by Light's Judgment Well on her 1, and Glory, her exalted weapon's primary fire, at a 10% chance to afflict enemies with the Judgment debuff, as well as a little visual icon above their head. Basically this applies 50% damage vulnerability lasting 10 seconds. Enemies killed while debuffed extend the effects of her 2 by 2 seconds. Symphony of Mercy, which we'll come back to later on. I originally set up to run Jade with no helmet, however I ran into 2 problems pretty quickly. First one being that I ran into serious energy issues around XO 50, and the second one being that I found using her Glory on her base kit fell off quite a bit around the same point. I then changed out her 1 for AIRBURST from Zephyr, which when cast pulls enemies into a burst of air, grouping them up. This really helps with the overall damage when combined with its augment AIRBURST rounds, which means every enemy hit by AIRBURST increases damage by 40% for 14 seconds. This is per enemy as well, with a damage cap of 500% bonus damage. This then combines with the effect of Glory and her passive, linking them up and using the explosions from Glory both in the primary fire and the alt fire to damage enemies more in the AoE. This helped massively with the damage on Thrax and also with the general speed of clearing trash. Jade's 2 is a combination of 3 different abilities. On tap you cycle through the 3 abilities and then you hold to cast the selected one. The first is Power of the 7, which increases ability strength, but I didn't really use that very much during this run. Then the other 2 are Deathbringer, which increases weapon damage by 100%, and Spirit of Resilience, which increases shield effectiveness, both of which I used extensively through the run. We can keep the uptime going on this by killing the enemy's debuff by our Judgment's passive, as I said previously in the passives. Spirit of Resilience restores shields 10% per second and reduces delay by 10%. This works kind of like Gauss's red line, with combining with Aegis, Fast Deflection and also Vig you can complete the whole set, but I just couldn't fit the mods on there with the build as I needed to solve the energy economy issues that I was having. I changed out Vig for Archon Stretch to allow me to run Diriga to help with my energy sustain, as well as Seismic Bond on there to help with the efficiency. For 3 is Ophium Eyes, which is a slow and an armor strip combined into one ability. The slow stacks up to a cap of 90% and reduces 10% of their shields per second. With the 3 Tau Red Shards we hit 200% strength and can apply a full strip using this, which is nice utility. It also inflicts 50 heat damage per second, which isn't really as important, but any extra damage we'll always take. Speaking of the shards, we also used 2 cast speeds to help with casting the Helmut mainly, but this was a bit janky still despite this, and I'll talk a bit more on that later. Finally then, our 4, which is our main damage, and our exalted weapon is called Glory on High. Jade opens up, takes flight and uses Glory to deal damage. Glory is coded as a secondary, which allows us to take advantage of secondary fortifier for some extra protection, but you can use anything in here like Enervate or Cascade Flare, anything if you're more confident in surviving on her. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you'll know I always take the easiest and safest paths I can on frames when building them for these solos, and I stack up as much survival options as I possibly can, especially on frames that I haven't really played much in the past. For my operator setup, I ran Zeneric for a change, but quickly found out that those energy benefits don't actually work while Glory is active, rendering it pretty useless in that respect. But using the Tower on Strike I did enjoy, and the books that circle you after casting the beam are good for killing Thrax ghosts passively. The weapons on the build don't really matter too much, so you can use whatever to help you with any passive benefits, but Furax is used for Amalgam Furax body count to help with the fire rate while you're in Glory. As you can see from the gameplay, the run wasn't exactly the most smooth and I encountered some issues throughout it. Firstly, while in Glory, it's pretty choppy. The movement isn't the best and it seems to have some strange interactions with abilities. For example, when casting AIRBURST, or going into operator sometimes just didn't work, and I was left spamming the button to try and make it happen, and this led to me just getting blasted out of the sky on more than one occasion. Secondly, the dash while in glory also has the same problem with consistency, so cleansing using rolling guard wasn't as instant as it should be, and it caused me some hurt there too throughout the run. I did find, however, that if I went closer to the ground it seemed to be more consistent, but felt like it kind of defeats the purpose of being able to fly if I'm having to go to the ground every time to use the roll. This build holds up really nice on steelpath star chart, as well as was super clean probably till about 1500 enemy level, but with the higher level enemies and the stronger attacks, the input delays and the choppy movement left me exposed quite a bit playing solo. As always, if you're more comfortable playing her, she is probably much stronger than I've showcased, but any Jade mains, feel free to drop me some tips down in the comments below. I used a different amp setup here in this run than my usual 547 that I have been running, just to try and switch it up a little bit. Moved across to the 147, which is more like a sniper shot or a scout rifle rather than the burst fire of the 547. Does a large single blasted damage, so it's a lot stronger if you can hit those shots, but I'll try and use some different examples of amps to showcase that there are other options to use. Overall, I think Jade is actually a great frame. She's really well suited to play in squads, particularly due to her buffs on her too. Her signature weapon set as well also include additional buffing tools, which are great for utility. I felt playing solo her kit's a little bit janky, especially while you're in glory, and I would probably think you'd be safer playing her with that subbed off for another ability and probably using weapons instead. Anyway, that's enough yapping and another frame down on the quest to clear all the frames solo to level cap and Cascade. If you've made it this far, it would be super helpful to me if you would like, comment and share the video to help me beat the algorithm overlords. Of course, a sub would also be a massive help, as we're closing in on 500 subs, which is actually insane to say. So thanks so much for everybody who supported and showed love in the journey so far. Until next time, lads, take it easy.
They fought well. Good deaths, all.